Right. We should be live any second. Start, you got an opening line?
I do.
All right. I'm going to start recording.
I haven't seen the stream hit yet.
I see it. We're good. We're on. I just got the buzz.
All right. Whenever you're ready.
All right. Let me get my notes up. Add a pause here so that when I, clean this up later for the other stuff. All right.
Your notes are up. Got him.
Wow.
That was the assist from Sinistress too.
Hey guys. Life is like a hurricane here on YouTube. Race cars, lasers, aeroplanes. Today on
Woo!
Don't woo over the intro.
We're sorry, YouTube.
Blast
You
me
woohoo.
back.
Playing that all day.
Hey everybody, welcome in to another Press B to Cancel podcast, the best podcast you're going to listen to, well, until we're done. Today we are talking about both retro and retro revisited in a game or a handful of games by the name of DuckTales, if you couldn't determine from my intro. But today I'm not alone. I am joined by three of my good friends. Jake, how are you today?
I'm on brand this week, and I'm hopped up. Oh, I didn't take my Dayquil. I better do that real quick. I'm hopped up on cold medication. I will be shortly because I feel like crap. But otherwise, I'm happy to be here this week.
Excellent. And Charred Monk, how are you today?
Great. Had a good slugging of Demon Souls today and did some real damage today. So it was a great afternoon.
Excellent. And last and certainly not least, Werewolf, how are you today?
I am feeling accomplished because I beat both of these this week.
Fantastic. I think you might be the only one of us.
I beat the original a while back, but I'll tell you what, the new one, I gotta really de-rust, and by de-rust I mean completely play the game from start to finish all over again.
Yeah, for sure. People may ask why we're not talking about a particular game from Nintendo this week. Well, because we don't want to get sued.
No takedowns here, please. Thank you.
That's right.
Yeah, we're sorry, Nintendo.
That's right.
Yeah, please don't press B to cancel this episode. That'd be great.
They're awful with it, man. Honestly.
Yeah, for sure. Okay. And while we're here, I'm going to go ahead and get this out before kind of the end of the episode. But if you like what you're hearing, please give us a subscribe, a like, tell your friends, all that stuff. All right. So this is two games. One was originally on the original Nintendo Entertainment System, and then a remake from a few years ago, which in my opinion is fantastic. Does somebody have a little more history than I have?
Other than it exists, and it was part of the Disney morning lineup or the Disney afternoon lineup.
That's
and
right.
it has one of the catchiest theme songs that anybody has ever heard in their lives.
Pure
And
banger.
even if you go DuckTales, you know that someone across the bar is going to go, woo!
Woohoo!
And that's you just know it's going to happen. That's all the history you need.
Well, the original game was Capcom's first foray into the whole Disney collection of games that they made, particularly for the NES. They did a few for the Super Nintendo, I believe, but it was mostly the NES is what they're remembered for, right?
Yeah.
This one came out in 1989, and they kept pumping games out on the NES until 94.
I didn't realize it's that late of a release for DuckTales. I thought it was earlier than that. That's awesome because the thing with these ones, all the Capcom's Disney games on the NES were just bangers, all of them really. Like Chip and Dale and all the rest of them.
They really hovered around that Disney afternoon theme set, which was it started with the 4 shows. It was Gummy Bears, DuckTales, Tailspin, and Rescue Rangers. The Darkwing Duck later got introduced. I think they took Gummy Bears out, put Darkwing Duck in there, which is another Capcom Disney afternoon game that is also spectacular. Capcom, like you said, really knocked all those games out of the park. They were incredible.
It's worth mentioning that DuckTales had a lot of the same development team as Mega Man, because the game
tell.
feels like it.
You can tell.
Yeah, the difficulty level for sure lands. Now, unlike Mega Man games, it seems like there's a difficulty selector.
It's still
Instead of
hard,
just
even on
instead
easy.
of just, here, enjoy suffering for a while.
Yeah. So I spun this game up
I
this
do
week.
find it interesting.
So
What's that?
I spun this game up this week just to try it,
Okay.
remind myself how brutal this game is, both the original and the remaster. And I think I died like 3-4 times in the Amazon stage. I'm like, okay, let's move on. Try the Moon stage because soundtrack's a banger, and then died like multiple times. And then I figured, okay, the remaster has to be easier, right? No, the remaster is also brutally difficult.
Now,
It's one of the harder
NES
NES games.
quality.
Yeah.
They did give you one quality of life feature in the remaster, and that is the ability to hold the X button in Pogo.
Yeah,
Yeah,
safe
instead of
mode.
holding
Yes.
down in the X button. Yeah.
Yeah, and so that
Which-
definitely is a quality of life feature.
I have to say that is a weird design decision to make that how that worked in the NES game,
Mhm.
because the B button doesn't do anything else, right?
Well, you can
It's
swing,
Your
right?
cane, period.
Yeah.
You swing at rocks or boulders or treasure chests or whatever.
But you have to be pressing
Or-
a direction to do
Yes.
whatever with the cane.
Right. But I don't know. I feel like it's weird that they made it so difficult to do the pogo in the NES game when the game is already pretty difficult. Now, I didn't try the easy mode. I don't know if they made it easier to do in the NES game. But
I think you get extra
in
life
easy, but
if you do easy, and I think that was a major difference.
yeah,
Did you get
probably.
like an extra heart?
Yeah.
Something like that.
But yeah, it's the game was pretty sufficiently hard, even on normal mode, in both the original and in remastered.
Mhm.
I think the NES game was harder than the remastered game for most of it.
I'm not surprised. I mean, there's that whole, mantra, NES hard, right? Or old school hard.
Mhm.
And yeah, so changing a couple quality of life features will make the game, arguably easier, right? Yeah, I didn't get terribly far because I'm trash at like Mega Man in particular. But I had a blast doing it. And honestly, the voiceovers in the remake and the soundtrack in the remake, I mean, if you look at like what is a like nearly perfect remake, that they basically kind of nailed it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
The fact that all the character sprites look just like they looked in the cartoons.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think they got most of, if not all of the original cast to reprise their roles.
Mhm.
And it just felt like where there was almost no plot in the NES game, they still
Yeah.
kept it feeling like the original game, but dropped a whole bunch of plot and storytelling and voice acting on top of it. And it felt cohesive. It didn't feel out of place. It didn't feel weird. It didn't feel like it broke the way the game unfolded or anything. And honestly, it felt like watching a DuckTales episode or the movie. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Right.
Especially when you beat remastered, which I'll come back to that in a few minutes. But once you beat remastered and you finally see the credits roll, you get fed the DuckTales theme song in its entirety, the long version, not the short version from the opening.
Good.
Right.
Oh, really?
So it's got all the verses and choruses, and then it feeds into a melody of a couple songs from the game, which is super
Very
cool.
Yeah.
That is cool. I like as soon as you fire the game up, as soon as you kick it off, but it's not only the DuckTales theme, but it's actually like the 8-bit original song
Mhm.
with like a couple
Modern
extra,
embellishments.
yeah,
Yes.
exactly, like some modern
It-
embellishments, but it still has that 8-bit sound. When I fired it up, I went, "Oh,
Yeah.
okay, here we go." I'm
Yeah,
ready
it's
to go.
it's chip tuned so that it sounds
Right.
like the original, right? But it's still a
Right.
chip tune,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
But
And I
man,
dug the lead in. I dug the, we'll get into, I guess, the breakdown of the game a little bit more if we want to. But the first one, obviously, you go right into the level select screen, but this one has kind of a lead in into what,
Mhm.
The tutorial.
you're going
yeah.
into the level, why you go to the level select screen. And I, like, to Wolf's point, exactly, it didn't feel awkward or forced or weird or out of place. It flowed really, really well. My one complaint is there's a lot of cutscenes within the game as a platformer, when you pick up the coins and stuff. But luckily, you can skip them. You can skip all the cinematics if you want to, if you've been playing it for a while. And with as many times as I died, I got tired of hearing the goddamn stuff over. So I was like, all right, speed it up. But it's pretty quick. It's a pretty quick turnaround. So.
But sometimes it's not just one or two cutscenes. It's like 3 or 4 in a row back to back. Because I was skipping a bunch of them when I played this week. And it's just like, come on already. Like, I like the story too, but you're right, Chard. Back to back was a bit much.
I do want to point out a little troll as well, because I was watching Chard play this last night on stream. And there's a series of steps that he kept going up, and a little gem would appear further back. So he had to keep going, and it kept appearing like one step down each time. So it was like forward, back, further, forward, back, even further. And then,
God damn it.
It's one of those
leaving a mess behind me.
It's one of those trolls that's harmless, so you still laugh, but you're also like, oh, you guys are trolls.
Right.
Yeah.
No, the game feels supernatural. The boss, my biggest thing that I ran into was the boss fight issues. I could get to almost every last boss on my own, and then as soon as I get to them, I'd just run out of lives. And I was like, I can't fucking. You hit it with the head. That's all you got to do is hit it in the head, and you're done.
But not like once or twice. It feels like 8 times. It seems a bit much for the modern bosses. Like I said this offline. Like you beat the loop. You figure out the loop of the boss after 2 or 3 goes, and once you get the loop down, you're like still have to keep hitting him again and again. And compared to the NES version, like even the first boss, the statue head in the NES game, I went back to it. It goes by so fast. In the remaster version, it looks better and there's more gameplay added to it, but it takes forever. Like a Metroid Dread had shorter boss fights than this game.
The boss fights in remastered are definitely stretched out versions of the original boss fights.
Yeah.
So in some ways, the modern boss fights might make it a little easier because there's more time to respond, or certain things are telegraphed better.
Yeah.
But the fight just takes so much longer that you kind of get knocked off your game just by the, the virtue of waiting, right?
It's like an endurance match a little bit, right?
Yes.
It's a war of attrition for the most part.
Exactly. That's what I was saying. Like, I'm going to keep doing the same pattern. He's going to keep doing the same pattern, and one of us is going to win. That's basically who's going to last the longest in this fight, and it's never me. Hasn't been me.
I have to say, I got trained by Mario games. So the first time I got into one of these boss fights, I did the 3rd hit, and I was like, why is the boss still standing?
I was expecting 3. Like Mario, Sonic, like all the big original hitters is 3 hits. But the original DuckTales, I want to say, was 5 hits per boss. And I think remastered made it 6.
Yeah.
Interesting.
But
like for how long those loops take, it's definitely too long.
I would say that most of the fights on the NES game, the boss fights, are easier than the remastered one, just because remastered fights take so long. There's more to learn. And in some cases that's good, and in some cases it's not. Like the fight with Dracula Duck at the end is harder on remastered, but it's also much more interesting. They added a whole other set of mechanics in that fight that were not present in the original.
All you do is try and land on the bats.
You still do the bouncing off the bats, but there's like another phase dropped in between those where he gets transformed into a dragon and shoots fire from the background at where you're standing. So you have to move. Or there's like a Space Invaders style drop of bats, and you have to go line up with the part where there's space for you not to get hit.
Well, that's kind of cool.
And then there's another one where he's just turned into a giant and tries to just stomp on you with his fangs.
So what you're saying is it is a Mega Man game.
It is a Mega Man game. It's when I was reading the remake, when I was about to buy it, and you guys were talking about doing this episode, and I picked it up. All the all the reviews are all what they call it, Duck Souls. Duck Souls. and it wasn't even like one person I would have laughed at, but there was like 5 people that said that in the top and the top rated it just said Duck Souls. Like,
So-
come on.
So when you're looking at the reviews, you're like, sold, click, because
Yeah,
it's a
buy.
Souls game.
DuckTales and Soulsborne's Tales. I'm there.
Now,
In a
the
heartbeat.
question that I have is the true story written as descriptions in the weapons?
Yeah, there's too much
Actually,
plot
if you
in
don't skip
DuckTales
the
Remastered.
cinematography. It's game of the year, guys. It's game of the year.
I learned more about the
I
Dung
will say
Eater
it's-
than in DuckTales Remastered than I have in Elden Ring. Put it that way.
I will say I think it's funny that there's like the level of plot in the original DuckTales for NES is acceptable for an action game from 1989 on the NES, right?
Yeah.
But it's a mess. It's not great.
Mm.
Well, what even
That
is the
and the,
plot
like-
in the NES one? Like you're collecting
It's-
magical
finding
items. right?
There's treasure to be found so that Scrooge can ensure that he remains the richest duck in the world.
Yeah. I mean, that's
like-
literally it.
I
You're
would,
just like, oh, there's shit
Yeah.
all over the world. I'm gonna go find it and be rich. Oh, okay.
yeah, and at the end of the game, that all these treasures are stolen by Magica Dispel and Flintlock Glomgold.
Of
I think that's
course,
his
of
name, right?
course. Yeah,
Flint
yeah.
Heart
Oh, yeah,
Glomgold or
Flintlock, yeah.
Flintheart.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
And they use those treasures. They just steal the treasures from him. Period. Like that's it. And so you go back to Transylvania to try and get the treasures back because that's where magic is from. I guess I don't know. They don't really go into details about that, right?
Jesus.
And so you go do that. You beat Dracula Duck, and then you have to beat Magica and Flintheart to the top of this tower thing
Oh, I remember that part.
and collect something at the
Yeah.
top to get out, and then that's the end of the game. And then they're like, well, we didn't get the treasure, but I'm still the richest duck in the world because I have you boys and Webby.
Oh,
Oh.
So,
So
they
they
always
take-
they always try to throw that heart of gold thing in at the end for Scrooge, like
Instead
in the
of
old
just-
episodes and the movie
instead
and
of
everything.
instead of the vault of gold, he has a heart of gold.
Right. Yeah.
Yes,
So,
and
I
so
gotta ask though, because
on the
there's
at surface level, go
there's
ahead,
a different ending though, isn't it? Isn't the NES one you have to have a certain amount of money at the end of the game to get the better ending?
Oh, I'm not sure.
Because that's why you collect
I
the
do
money.
not know.
And
Maybe.
there's a certain
that
level you
sounds
need.
familiar, actually.
I'll look it up
Hmm.
while you keep going.
That could be
Yeah,
the
mind
case, but I
palace.
think I suspect I got that one, but I don't know.
Hmm.
However, like in the old show and everything, he's always portrayed as, greedy on the surface, and then at
Right.
the end of every episode, it always shows that he's got a heart of gold underneath all that. And when push comes to shove, he'll always put, what he cares about before the money, even though surface level, it's always about money for Scrooge, period.
So you're saying
Which-
it's the opposite of real life.
Yeah, it's an interesting dynamic. Like the story is not aged well because the whole point is for this billionaire duck to remain a billionaire, the richest billionaire at that.
Right.
He's
Yeah.
And
got
it's
what
like,
is it?
you know,
6 cubic gallons of gold or some shit.
I
Gallons.
don't gallons. That's not
I
a
don't
lot.
know.
That's not a lot. He swims in it.
He's got
or
enough to
he
swim
swims
in.
I'm
it.
just it's gallons because he swims in it. Because if you
Well,
ever
then it
swam in coins, you're an idiot.
Well, I was going to say that the problem that I run into with this game and the cartoon is it taught me I could swim in coins. And that might be why I am the way I am today, guys.
You seen that Family Guy episode where he jumps into the pool of coins and he
Mm-hmm.
breaks every bone in his body? He goes, "Why does he do this? This isn't possible."
So there are 2 secret endings in DuckTales on the NES. And one people
Oh,
watching
okay.
or
What are
listening
they?
probably haven't heard of. The main one is if you collect $10 million or more in the game, you get a larger pile of loot that he jumps through at the end of the game's credits. So he does get the treasure to a degree if you get $10 million in game, which is probably doable.
Okay.
There's a
Which
trick
I
where you
did.
can refill your life if you spend $3 million. I didn't realize that. So that's pretty interesting. The super secret ending is if you finish the game with no money, if you manage to spend all your money and not collect anything, you get a special bad ending where you end up going bankrupt. I've never seen that one. You have to look that up.
Huh.
Huh.
That's interesting.
Yeah,
Huh.
because
I love
to
it.
not collect money would be very hard in DuckTales because they literally drop gems everywhere you turn, there's a gem popping out.
Right. Well, what you do is you make sure that
It's
you
like a
at the
challenge
end
ending.
have $3 million and then refill your life right at the end.
Yes, exactly.
Yeah.
That's funny.
Huh. Well, go ahead.
I was going to say, I find it interesting that in Remastered, you can freely revisit stages you've beaten. In the NES game, you can't. The stages are a one-time visit, except for the case where some stages require you collect an item from another stage. And so you go to that stage and they're like you go to the mines, I think it is, right? And they're like, oh, you need the key from Transylvania. And all of a sudden, you just, boom, you're back in the mansion in Transylvania looking for a key. It's like, okay, I guess that happened.
Well,
I did
does
kind
the
of
new
like
one
the
have
tie-in
that?
of having to go back and forth to the places to find the stuff to unlock the other stuff.
Right.
I thought that was kind of a neat.
Yeah, because it's a bit different, right? Like the Amazon stage, for example, in the remake, you have to find these, I think it's like 8 coins scattered on the level, and it actually forces you to take the different alternate pathways to get all of them. Whereas the original NES game didn't have that, right?
Right. So instead of doing stuff like that in Remastered, I hesitate to call it the new one because I think it's like 10 years old now.
Yeah,
but
2013, I think.
But in Remastered, they made it to where you have to do a lot of exploration on each stage to find whatever it is that stage has you looking for.
Right.
You know, so in the Amazon, you're looking for medallions to unlock something. On the moon, you're looking for the pieces of Gizmo Duck's outfit because they've gotten scattered, stuff like that.
I love Gizmo Duck.
Which, I mean, it's really cool because they open up, you know, these interactions. Like in the Himalayas, you're looking for pieces of the plane that Launchpad crashed so that he can fix the plane and you can fly off.
I do have a question though about Gizmo Duck. Where do his feet go?
See, here's a funny thing about that. When you grab the bottom half of his suit as Scrooge McDuck, he actually points out, he goes, why did Gizmo create this thing this way? Who would fight crime on a unicycle?
He said that about Gyro, which is the scientist.
Gyro, not Gizmo.
Yeah.
Like, why did he create it this way? I thought that was funny. So it's brought up.
But when he puts the unicycle on, there's
no
room. There's no room for his.
He's crisscross applesauce.
I always assumed that his legs were like up in the body and that the unicycle was managed as like a standalone.
This is why it's Game of the Year. Because there's more lore and plot in DuckTales than any other game released in the last 5 years. Just saying. The Gizmo Duck lore you wanted.
Digging deep.
Right here.
We are digging deep, guys. I thought it was cool when you got Gizmo Duck 2 on the moon and you're going to go unlock the lunar vault or whatever. He actually comes with you and he's fighting stuff while you're
that was neat.
It's cool, like shooting rockets off at things and whatnot. I was like, oh, that's a cool addition. I don't remember that happening.
No, and Bubba does that in the Himalayas too. Bubba follows you around until you get to where he needs to break something for you, and he's smashing enemies left and right doing the same kind of thing.
Well,
so
I know that there's a stage.
Cool.
I know there's a stage where like Launchpad helps you get through the stage. You know, you hang from the helicopter.
The Amazon one, in the middle of the Amazon.
Yeah.
Although his banter back and forth is like, okay, I know you're hungry, Launchpad. Get over it.
When I was watching you play it, Chard, I also saw the part where where the boys fall through the trap door, and that whole interaction with Webby and Scrooge like took me back to the cartoon, where I was like, I hate Webby.
It was so funny. I was like actually listening to that part, voice acted in bed. I was playing on my Steam Deck. And the wife was just like, well, that's annoying.
Accurate.
See, I'm not alone. I'm not alone.
They really did nail the cartoons graphics. Like the aspects of the cartoon was captured perfectly in the remastered version.
Yeah.
For sure.
Oh, yeah.
Yes.
I know they were gonna,
And
they had one time they were doing a remake of the show, if I remember right. Which
They did. It's
Well,
good.
funny
they
because
did do. They did.
They
do
happened
one.
they
in,
did.
like,
They did.
2018,
It's not on
I
anymore,
think.
but
Yeah.
when they did that, it didn't. It almost didn't mimic like the
Yeah.
original, right? It was kind of a newer
Yeah.
version or whatever, a different artistic style. But the game mimics the
Mhm.
original so well
Mhm.
that it's like, I don't know why they didn't just do it that way. Like, why change it up? Why, you know?
Yeah.
Well,
it
I
did
would
well
like
in the
to.
game.
I shared this in the Discord, but now that you bring it up, this is a good point to mention it. The moon theme is probably one of the most recognizable just NES tunes for old gamers like us, right?
Mhm.
Yeah.
And the DuckTales reboot, in its second season, there's a story that goes to the moon. And they use the moon theme in that episode.
Hell yeah.
It's
Very nice.
Oh,
it's
nice.
used twice. Once as a lullaby. I think it's the boy's mom. So
Okay.
Huey, Dewey, and Louie's mom. She shares this lullaby and she sings it to like a moon monster bug thing. I don't know, to help it calm down. But then after that, she's like jumping across the hillsides of the moon, and she's like na 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 na. It's great. So the fact that they incorporated it into the cartoon remake is amazing to me. I love that. When they rebooted the show, they sort of took nods from what people loved about old DuckTales,
Yeah.
however it was, and incorporated it. And it's
Yeah.
I do appreciate that the new DuckTales has David Tennant as Scrooge McDuck.
Mhm.
Because if you've
And he
ever
did a good job.
listened, if you've ever listened to him, because he is Scottish, and
Oh.
so
Mhm.
Scottish
when
too.
Yeah,
His
when
accent
he
is
does-
there.
when he does Doctor Who, that is not how David Tennant sounds, right? Like
Yeah.
when he does his Scottish accent, there are times where you're like, repeat,
don't sound like-
repeat. I need to
Right.
hear what you said.
That voice,
Uh-huh.
that voice is not coming out of that body. That's not
Uh-huh.
right. That's not what I hear or see.
Yeah.
No, I've been super impressed with all the animation and the running
Mhm.
motions of when he gets the power up where he's invincible and running through. It's actually quicker. I don't remember
Mhm.
it ever being that fast in the original. And you've got like the star trail behind you, and
Mhm.
it was always, it's such a stupid little thing, but when he if you use your cane on something that it doesn't move and he hits it,
Yeah.
in the original NES, his eyes just go brrr, but the body stays where it's at. I mean, it's 8-bit. What are you going to do? But in the new one, when he hits it, it's like his feathers fly everywhere and his butt kicks up, and it's all kinds of chaos there. I really like all the detail and stuff that they did with this game to keep it, looking pretty slick. So
Yeah.
but this was one of the earlier games that I beat as a kid. Actually, I went on like a Disney afternoon kick, and Chip and Dale was the first one. Rescue Rangers was the first one that I finished ever. First game I ever beat as a child. I think like 8 or 9 years old. I beat that one, and DuckTales was not too far after that. I really played the hell out of this game growing up. I really enjoyed it.
That's wild
What's,
because Rescue Rangers is pretty easy considering, but DuckTales and then Darkwing Duck as well are just, I find, so much harder than Rescue Rangers. I love Rescue Rangers, especially in co-op, but I find it a lot easier and manage to beat. I could never beat DuckTales as a kid. So kudos to you as a kid beating this.
Do you guys have without me looking it up, do you guys know what the kind of the average runtime is to beat this game?
I'd say 30, 45 if you're just kind of casually playing it. I don't think it takes too long. I mean, you've got the 5, 6 levels that you have to do, and then I think you got to repeat them after you do them one more time. So it's very Mega Man.
So
And
it's
this
a
is,
Mega Man game. Yeah.
It is.
Hour and
I
a
mean,
half,
this
or-
game is so Capcom. It's ridiculous how Capcom this game truly is. Because if you didn't know, you would just be like, this is such a Capcom freaking game. The music, the style, the whole platforming, everything about it. The only thing you don't do is you don't have an arm cannon. But it's essentially the same damn thing. It's the same the same artwork for each enemy. They all the gorillas running around look just like the mecha gorillas and Mega Man. It's ridiculous. And Darkwing Duck is the same way. You know, if I didn't already know it was a Capcom game, I would have easily been like, "Yep, that's a Capcom right there."
So what you're saying is you don't have an arm cannon, you have a shillelagh.
You do have a shillelagh, or you just have a cane.
That's
I will say I'm kind of surprised that Chip and Dale was your first game. You guys are saying Chip and Dale is easier. I feel like Chip and Dale was harder than DuckTales.
No,
really?
Come on.
No.
Like,
oh my god!
I had
so much more trouble beating Chip and Dale than DuckTales as a kid.
Really?
Oh man,
I'm going to say that right now.
As I'll never forget, I was at my friend's house. This is on topic, off topic, but I was fighting Fat Cat, the last boss of the game, and you got to throw the thing and hit him, and you got to dodge his cigar ashes that are drifting down on you. And I swear to God, I threw that
to the 90s.
Across the room.
Yeah, huge.
when I beat that game, man, I was stoked. And he took up the whole screen. Like, listen, I know we play Dark Souls and we play all these games that are like with these elaborate boss fights and shit, but this guy took up the whole screen of my TV. He was huge. It was cool. It was really cool.
Yeah, Capcom really picked up the spirit of the animations of Disney's cartoons, and they just nailed it in every respect, right? Like Fat Cat being huge, just like the cartoon. He's animated well. DuckTales, same idea. Like even Launchpad riding that helicopter on the Amazon stage, it just feels on point. Like they captured it so well. I'm surprised Capcom hasn't done more work with Disney recently because they had such a history back on the NES.
They're busy fighting with someone else.
yeah, no kidding.
Right.
Entire state.
Yeah. No, I was gonna say that it's interesting the change in times as well. You brought up that you're dodging like cigar ashes or whatever, right? Like in today it'd be like, you know, candy canes that he was spitting out of his mouth or something, right?
Nicotine patch.
Or kibble.
Yeah.
Or whatever.
Yeah.
But I mean, he was a mob
At least
boss.
in game,
he was
into kids, you know.
He's Fat Cat. He's a mob boss.
Yeah.
You don't know what he's a cat. He's an a-hole cat trying to beat up some rodents. You know, that's his gig. But you look back at 41 and 40 plus years old around, and we're like, I don't know if I should have been playing that.
Yeah,
I think about it.
Well, I mean,
I've seen Kingpin break people's heads open with his bare hands. Is it the same concept that we're looking at? It is bad.
As kids, we also had, Disney produced Black Hole, the movie. Terrified me as a kid, right?
Right.
Maximilian, like killing a guy.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Shit.
Different time.
Even the windmill short, that stupid short about the goddamn windmill.
Mm-hmm.
Out in the middle of the day, there's no voice acting over it. There's nothing. It's just the windmill, and it's animated, and it's a dilapidated, rundown windmill that's sitting out in this field, and there's birds living in the gears, and there's all this stuff, and then this storm comes through, and it turns it up, and it's horrifying. The animals are like huddled in the gears, and the teeth, one of the teeth of the gears is missing, so it comes down on this mama bird and her kids, but it survives because there's a hole.
When was this?
Horrifying.
When did this come out?
It's called The Old Windmill. Check it out.
That's not Disney Plus, is it?
As a child,
is Disney Plus censoring their history?
It's old. I mean, it's like way before any of our times, like it existed. But
we had Black Hole, we had Secret of Nim, we had Watership Down. I mean, all of these are traumatizing.
Black Cauldron.
Black Cauldron.
Why we have anxiety? It's because of these goddamn shows we grew up watching. Fucking Windmill ruined my life. Are you kidding me?
1937.
Thanks, Disney.
To be fair,
my therapist is rich.
My uncle. I remember I was probably like 10 years old the first time I saw it. So like 93. But my uncle once showed me like heavy metal.
Mm.
Oh, yeah. Classic.
Which is definitely not something for a 10-year-old. But I saw that when I was very young. And I want to say Wizards, I think was the other one.
Oh, yes.
Wizards, yeah.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
I had my oldest brother's 10 years older than I am. So I might have seen Porky's at a very young and tender age.
Jesus Christ, Charm.
Well,
What am I watching?
Video,
Holy crap.
right?
Wow.
It's 1937, dude.
The
It
bird
is
in her
old.
nest. Oh, she's
Yeah.
grounded up.
And
That's
then I
awful.
want to point out another fun thing about our era. So my parents decided with the older kids that were, older than me, to watch Alien. And at the time, like I wasn't allowed to watch it, but I heard them watching it. And in my head, it was so much worse because I associated every noise with something in my own imagination. It was so much worse. Yeah. So
Worse than the new Mortal Kombat
Dude, that's
trailer. I put
graphic.
the clip up.
That's graphic.
Here's the thing, though. Here's another thing about this. This is totally off base. I don't care. We're talking Disney.
yeah, we're off topic here.
There's
We're on
a
brand.
park. Wolf will know this. There's a park in the Disneyland park in California Adventure. They do a light show or like a water light show, right? And they added parts of this video to the water light show. So like when the storm comes in, I'm not even kidding you. They play it like they project scenes of it on the water. It's really cool. But when the storm comes in and it starts raining and stuff, they put this goddamn windmill up here, and then I start having anxiety. And nobody knows why I'm freaking out because nobody's seen this goddamn video except for my family. And I'm like, oh god, the birds! All the animals inside are gonna die from the goddamn. But nothing. Everybody lives.
We need a T-shirt, Wolf. We need a T-shirt design that just cancel the windmill, and I want a pixel windmill and a bird's nest below it. That's what we need as a T-shirt. We gotta spread the message out there.
It's the gears, man. It's horrifying.
Yeah, it's terrible. That scene is like, I can't imagine the person animating that must have been in a happy place all week. That's just brutal.
I have never seen this. So I'm gonna have to go look it up.
I posted the YouTube clip in our chat.
I recognized it once I went and checked it out. I remember it, but
most people have seen it, but they
what
don't.
I will say is I've never been to
don't lean
California
into it.
Adventures, so I can't attest to that.
Well, I remember they in the actual Disneyland theme park when they do the parades, they had the boats that would come in and that would spray the water and they would project onto the water before California Adventure. Back, because I haven't been to a Disney park since before they put in California Adventure. So
I think if they used to call it it was like Fantasia, but it was like the live version.
Yeah.
Of Fantasia.
But they'd have boats come in and they had boats that
called? It
sprayed,
was
water.
You know what's scarier? So I was lucky to go to Japan a few years back with my daughter, and we went to Japan, local culture. We went to Tokyo Disney World just because. But they had, like you do. But the one park, Disney Sea, there has it has a water show, and you want something terrifying, put it in Japanese. It's not in English. It's not in English. And it was Ursula, I think, a Little Mermaid scene with Ursula coming up with the water. It was pretty terrifying. I know we're sidetracked so bad right now, but I got to say there. So we were there at Disney in Japan with my daughter. Just my daughter and I went. And she was only 6 at the time, so she couldn't see. So I picked her up and put her on one of the rocks, right, as we're watching this water show in this open bay. And I love Japanese people. They have a customer service that is second to none. But when you break the rules, they don't mess around. Because within seconds of me putting her up on that rock, I had somebody from the park run up to me, and they don't know if I speak Japanese or not. So they're just like making the X. They're like, "This means don't do this." And I saw them do it throughout the park. If you broke a line, if you jumped line, which I would never do, but some people did. If you got angry, they would come up to you and they just make the X sound, hand gesture, and it was hilarious. And they did that to me with my daughter. So that's my Disney.
X is gonna give it.
X gonna give it to you. All right. So back on topic.
Back to DuckTales.
So I obviously don't have like a childhood experience with the original NES DuckTales. Any notables from any of you on your childhood memories of playing DuckTales? I know we've talked a little bit, but any notable memories you think of?
The pride I felt in beating the Dracula boss on the NES was because it's a complicated fight. I mean, you have to jump on the bats because I couldn't figure out how to do it when I was younger, right? Because there's nothing that tells you how to do it. You kind of figure it out as you're playing through the game. But I'm like, there's no way I can jump on these 3 bats to get up there and hit him. And I figured out how to do it. I just trial and error. I died so many goddamn times trying to fight this stupid boss. and I finally figured it out, and I got up there, and then when you get the end credits rolling, and I think it showed off the treasures you get or whatever when you beat the game or something, and I was like, oh my god, I did it! I got the end credits. Anytime seeing the end at the end of a video game when you're 10 or 11, you're like, I'm the coolest person in this house right now.
Yeah.
Now the reason I asked
know
her,
this-
oh, go ahead.
I was gonna say, I don't know if this happened to you guys when you were kids playing video games, but this used to happen to me, and I specifically remember it from playing Blaster Master, but it happened with all sorts of end bosses when it was a game that you'd been working on for a while. You get to the final boss and you get that adrenaline rush where your hands are kind of numb and you don't know if you're going to be able to keep up with the fight.
Yep. Mom spaghetti.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, I got so many sweaty palm controllers from my NES and from my Sega. Oh God, all the time. Sonic the Hedgehog, same thing. I just would be like tripping about it.
For me and my memory of Disney games is probably Rescue Rangers for the co-op, the same screen multiplayer co-op where you could pick each other up. You know, that was a fight
and
starter.
Throw each other at the enemies.
Yes, at the enemies or in the spike pits, or pick up an apple and throw it at your partner, and they get dazed, and the stars go around their head. I love the co-op in that game. I wish
and then they're stuck
more
in
of
the
the Disney
apple
games
for a
did
minute.
that. Yeah, it's good. Like Capcom did such a good job with those games. I just can't say that enough. Capcom nailed those Disney games.
I love the catch mechanic in Chippendales. So like there's that one boss with the electrical bolts in the hands, and you got to throw the red ball at it. You can literally catch it. Yeah, is that the first one? You can literally throw it up and catch it. And speedrunners do it all the time where you just keep throwing the ball up and catching it. And I thought that was a pretty cool thing. And if you mess it up, then you get dazed and you got to reset if you're speedrunning. So but I thought that was a really cool mechanic for back in that time frame where you don't think about that kind of stuff.
Oh yeah.
Now,
Oh, go ahead.
But I had a question, so keep talking. I'll.
Oh, I was gonna go back to the ending of Remastered, but
well, I guess so. I guess my question is on the original NES. So let me phrase this really quick. But
okay.
The reason I asked earlier what the time to beat was is I wanted to kind of have an understanding of, did this fall into the era of Nintendo's difficulty spike for rentals? Like, was this a game that you guys rented or you owned? Was it a game that people would end up renting, like Battletoads, where yes, it's a one and done, but you ended up renting it, 10 times before you could beat that game, right?
I'll go first on this one.
I think I rented it twice.
Okay.
I'm a Disney kid. My parents are Disney fans. We watched Disney shows. We did all the Disney crap. My mother's originally from Southern California, so she was always at Disneyland, so she instilled all that stuff in us. So anything Disney oriented, if I was like a game that was Disney oriented, she'd get it. I didn't have to rent it. She'd be like, this is a good game for you to play. We'll pick this one up. There was no question on whether it was going to be too violent or too blah, blah, blah. And it's not like my mother's a huge,
dodging ashes from cigars.
Family friendly content. Don't worry about it.
But the content was good. I was just hitting someone in the head with a cane. But so I owned it, and I'm like, from straight out the bat, that one, Rescue Rangers, and Darkwing Duck. I had all three of those. And we never played. We just picked them up. She just bought them and got. I think I got them for like a birthday gift or whatever. And so I wouldn't experience the difficulty spike to get it done in a weekend, but the game was definitely difficult. At a young age, it's difficult now. Like we all said, it was difficult to play. Yeah. I was also playing it on my Steam Deck. I played both versions on my Steam Deck just to kind of get the feel to remember of how the old one used to play. And they're both pretty difficult. So I'll tell you what, though, finding out that life improvement of not holding the direction button down when I was bouncing around, huge. I was like, oh my God, I felt like a superstar after I had to do that anymore. My thumb hurt, man, because I was always holding that thing down.
There's a lot of sections where if you let the cane go early enough, you end your high jump. So there's parts where you need to use that so you don't hit the ceiling, right? And that easy pogo makes those sections actually fun to do. Whereas in the NES, they're just challenging. It's like you're getting a cramp in your hands the way you have to hold a pogo. It's doable, but it's much more easier on the remastered version.
Right.
Awesome. Well, you were going to talk about something with the
Yeah. So the ending to the remaster, you'll remember earlier I said that he loses the treasures in the NES version, but he's still the richest because he's got his nephews, right?
Of course.
In the remake, instead of having to go back to Transylvania after you collect all 5 treasures, you go to Mount Vesuvius. I don't know why that's where they sent you, but that's where Magica Dispel went to summon Dracula Duck. Even though you go to Transylvania in the game, Mount Vesuvius.
Well, remember, they talked about him not being. There's no
we go.
Dracula in Transylvania, and there's no way. It's just an old rundown place. They even mentioned that in the discussion.
It's Dracula's vacation home.
Right.
Their summer home. That's all it is. It's their cottage.
Right.
You know?
So the Mount Vesuvius is the only level I really struggled with in this game. And it wasn't even the first part of it. It was honestly at least over halfway through, and often, most of the time, after beating Dracula Duck. You get through the whole stage, you fight Dracula Duck, and then you have to beat Magica and Flintheart to your lucky dime. So they've used these treasures to swindle Scrooge out of his first dime, his lucky dime, and those treasures were used to summon Dracula Duck. So he ultimately gets his dime back. He gets the treasures back, but in escaping that volcano as it's going off because of all the stuff you've done there, I kept dying after beating Dracula Duck.
Oh.
Trying to escape and get out of the mountain. I had probably a dozen game overs. I'd have to go through the stage, beat Dracula, try to escape, I'd die. Over and over and over and over. It was so frustrating. It was probably across 3 different days, maybe 4, of me trying to make that happen. I got so mad. Like, before I beat it, I went through all the game, got to that point, died a bunch, got fed up, went to Disney Afternoon Collection, played through the entirety of NES DuckTales, and then went back to Remastered and beat Remastered.
You just had to get that taste.
By the way, I want to point something out. I just spun up DuckTales, NES, the original NES, while we've been talking. The pogo does stay if you hold the B button. You just have to press
but you have to press down to start
once. Yeah,
you got to kickstart it. Yeah.
But you don't have to hold it down the whole time. Yeah.
Yeah, it's just easier to hold it down, especially if you break it off.
No, I actually made use of that where I would stop holding down because that messes with your directions.
No, I'd smash down. I would have an indentation of the down pad in my thumb because I'd be white knuckling that thing.
Same hand
I can't hear the word Vesuvius without thinking of Zoolander ever. We never even been to Mount Vesuvius. We've been in the desert smoking peyote for three whole days. Sorry. I'm just way off. I'm way off base today.
That's okay. It wouldn't be a press B if we were,
Exactly.
You beat Remastered, and then what is it? Scrooge gets to keep all the treasure, and then you get a newspaper headline that's like, Scrooge McDuck remains richest duck in the world.
So he learned nothing.
And
about
I was kind of curious. I was like, is there actual dialogue, like text in the newspaper? It was just lorem ipsum, blah blah blah. But
that's where your DuckTales lore is. That's where all the lore is.
In the newspaper in Latin.
It's in Latin, yeah.
Like Tunic, you got to decode this language to find out how happy he is.
That's right.
I don't know what my mom's talking about. Okay, so context. My mom is in the comments here. And she just said, I must have been a terrible mother. We picked up violent video games for Jimmy without question. I don't remember the games being stupid violent. Just NES violent, right? Mega Man shooting lemons out of his arm.
Mom Wolf, did you also let him watch Black Hole, Black Cauldron, Secret of Nim, Watership Down, any of those? And if so,
the old Windmill.
You were normal. You were normal.
Secret of Nim is a dark cartoon, but yeah.
Oh yeah, I watched it recently.
We watched
it recently, yeah.
All Dogs Go to Heaven was horrifying. I mean,
it's terrible.
Damn.
Yeah, it's depressing.
Yeah. Yeah, that. Oh, we just lost Jimmy again. That era of Disney and Disney side, like I know that Secret of Nim wasn't Disney, it was Bluth, right? It was Don Bluth.
Yes, yeah.
That era was rough.
Yeah. It would make sense why all of us are so jacked up in the head these days. So,
yeah.
I'm pretty sure I saw Return of the Living Dead when I was 6.
They're coming to get you, Barbara.
I don't know if Mom knew about that, but my uncle, it was the same uncle that showed me heavy metal that I got to see that too.
Hi, Mom.
Hi, Wolf. Hi,
I'm
Wolf,
pretty
Mom.
sure I've told her that by now.
Okay.
He passed away years ago. He was the closest thing I had to a big brother, but yeah.
That's funny.
I think the most inappropriate movie I watched as a kid was it Burt Reynolds? Was it The Best Little Whorehouse in Texas? That was probably the most inappropriate I watched. And that wasn't too bad.
Yeah,
I stuck that out at 3 in the morning.
Very little to no nudity in that, but
yeah, disappointing as a kid.
It's about a whorehouse.
Think there would be.
Yeah, it's about a whorehouse. I mean,
I'm just sitting over here with Predator and Aliens under my belt for my first 2 scary movies, and I think Nightmare on Elm Street 4, whichever one the guy does he gets turned into the marionette and walked out the building. Which I will forever this day has stained my brain for the rest of my life. I can never get that image out of my head. It's awesome.
I watched Commando at probably a young age of 8.
Remember when I said I'd kill you last?
Yeah,
I lied.
And I remember the scene where he comes out of the shed and takes the 2 saw blades and just takes off the top of a guy's head like that, just like your marionette from that is mine, is the guy's head getting lopped.
Guys, now I don't feel so bad about my daughter watching Prometheus with me when she was 6.
Prometheus is fine.
No, yeah, I don't know. There's still some chest bursting in that movie.
My kid watched Megan with me a month and a half ago.
Oh, well.
That movie's too scary for me as an adult.
And he was fine. He had a little trouble sleeping that night, but he slept through the night. He just told us the next morning that he had nightmares, but after that, he was fine. But for all the movies I saw, because I saw Elm Streets as a kid, I saw Night of Living Dead, Return of Living Dead, Alien movies, The Blob, all these things. For all these scary movies I saw when I was little, the one that really messed with me was Cat's Eye.
Yes.
With that stupid little troll from the wall sucking the soul out of the little girl while she slept. That was what got me.
Invasion of the Body Snatchers with Donald Sutherland, and that scene at the end where it's like a dog with a human's head, and I'm just like, that's nightmare fuel forever.
Yeah.
This has got to be the weirdest tangent we've gone on in the history of PESP, at least in the last year. From fucking wholesome Disney games,
we're talking about
the scariest movies.
Scariest movies.
You know what Disney's famous for.
Wow.
We had to note that Disney traumatized us as kids, so
well, Disney sense. and its subsidiaries, yes.
To be fair, not DuckTales. All the DuckTales episodes, the movie, they were all super wholesome despite the greed.
Yeah.
Yeah. A lot of greed, but that was about
ignore the blatant capitalism and so in preparation for this episode, I actually spun up the first episode of DuckTales. And there's a part where Scrooge McDuck is walking past somebody that's money for the poor, and he's like, not worth it. That's his phrase.
Oh my God.
It's he's an awful character. He really is. It's like giving praise to Oscar the Grouch.
Can we remember that Scrooge McDuck, I believe, originated from the Christmas Carol story that was done up by Disney, and then they gave him his own show. He's a piece of shit.
He's based on Ebenezer Scrooge, just constantly learning the value of the human heart. Right?
How does that turn into a character for a show? How does Disney go, who'd make a great kids show? This evil miser who starved people.
Well, it's the evil miser who starves people.
This
that-
evil
that-
miser.
that has the ability to learn. That's the
So,
important piece.
it's
is
the education.
Yeah, because the other side of that same coin would be Flintheart, where he's constantly trying to make his money by stealing, thieving,
Right.
and
swindling.
doesn't learn.
You know,
and
all these.
doesn't learn.
Yeah, he never learns. He goes to jail like he enlists the help of the Beagle Boys, who are a family of career criminals.
Well, let's not
whenever-
judge the entire Beagle family. We can't paint him with the same brush. There might be one of the
No,
Beagle
they
brothers
are.
that's
We've
okay.
seen it. There's dozens
They
of
all
them,
have
and they're
jail-
all
they
they
all
all
have
their
numbers.
prison number.
Look, don't
Now,
judge them
I
on what
gotta-
they're wearing. You don't know their
gotta-
drip, okay? It could be a style choice. I don't judge them all.
I gotta point out.
Pretty
I
sure
gotta
Ma
point out,
Beagle is the only one who hasn't served time.
am I the only one that whenever I watch Goonies or I watch DuckTales, I equate the criminal families
Yeah.
as like the same? I'm like, it's the Beagle Boys whenever I see the family in Goonies, and when I see the family in Goonies, I'm like, it's the it's the Beagle.
I wouldn't
Anyway,
be
yeah.
shocked.
The
if there
Tatellis and
wasn't
the Beagles
some
are the
kind of
same
correlation.
people.
Yeah, I
just-
wouldn't be shocked if Disney was like, we're gonna take the criminal family from the Goonies and make them the Beagle Boys family.
Yeah.
Like essentially, it's the Fratellis. It's the same
The
thing.
Fratellis, yeah.
Yeah. So whenever I watch those, like I look at them, I'm like, it's the same family. They just one's dressed up in their prison attire and have dog
All the
faces
time.
and,
And red sweaters.
and
They're
you know
casual
what?
wear.
Ma
I mean,
Beagle,
again, we don't.
Ma
judge.
Beagle and Ma Fratelli are the same character.
They are.
Yeah.
Just what a life
Throw her
lesson
from
for
the
kids.
train.
Rip.
That's right.
God
Just like
damn it,
Jake.
Jake.
don't gain your fortunes by being stealing and stealing treasure. No, gain your billions by exploiting the poor workers. That's what you do. That's the lesson we're teaching our kids.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
And we lean into that in the
lean
remastered
into it.
DuckTales. There's the mine, right? In
Right.
the original NES game, there's no context to this cave mine you're in, but you work your way down, you get the treasure. But in the remastered, it's a mine that Scrooge owns, and the workers are scared and leaving. And he's like, "Get back to work, you bunch of lazy bums!" And they're like, shit's weird down there. I'm out, dude."
Isn't like the boss the guy going, you're the dude that's like invading our home and making all this noise up there. He's like, yeah, I own this place.
Yeah.
He's like, this is our home, you asshole. What do you mean you
Yeah.
own it? You live here.
Hey, I come back to money for the poor, not worth it.
Not worth it.
Gosh, that's horrible.
That is literally in the first
I'm pretty
like,
sure.
30 seconds of the show.
I'm pretty sure they made him less of a miserly fellow in the DuckTales remake show,
Yeah.
and just more of a grouch, right?
Right. But even then, he's nice to the kids in the remake, even in the game. Like he loves them. You could just tell.
Oh yeah, he loves the
loves fun,
kids,
too.
but he's always like, "Do as I say," and then when they don't, he's like, "Okay, I guess I gotta fix it now."
Yeah, because I keep fucking up. I mean, yeah, I'd be doing the same thing. I'm not a miser. but
Stay
if
here.
it keeps
Sorry, Uncle
screwing up-
Scrooge, we didn't stay here. Oh, you boys.
Oh, you boys. And then Webby's crying in the corner and he spends 5 minutes
I'm
consoling
sorry,
her.
Uncle Scrooge. I told him not to do it.
Back to the mines with you all.
Back to the mines with you.
Yeah, where's the punishment threat of the mines? Like
I don't know. The hanging bird cages are pretty unattractive or unappealing too.
that's
Just
true.
throw them in there.
Although arguably it's the Beagles that put them in that, right?
Fair. Whether they're wearing a ghost sheet or not, it is true.
Yes.
Look, you know what? Say what you want with the Beagles, but at least the Beagles wear pants. Okay, who's the real criminals in this TV show?
This is true. You know, like father, like sons.
Pants are for poor
Grandfather.
people, according to this show.
Pants are for poor people.
Only poor people cover their never eating.
If you can afford
Yeah.
pants, you're too poor.
Gyro.
Florida.
Gyro works for McDuck. He wears pants.
Mm,
Well, he does, but he
Fenton,
has good
his
weather.
accountant, doesn't wear pants.
Yeah, that's
Mm.
true. That's true.
So
yeah.
He also
And-
has to have his
Tells
hat
you-
attached by a string.
And Gizmo doesn't wear pants under his suit. So there you go.
It's because he's crisscross applesauce.
Well, Gizmo is Fenton, so
Yeah. Yeah. Awesome. Well, any other
Oh,
thoughts
man.
on this, or
I
have
We've been
have
all
we
just
over
run-
the
that
gambit today.
before researching this episode, I didn't realize there was a DuckTales 2 on the NES. I haven't fired it
is.
up. Well,
I
I
haven't
fired
either.
it up, but I haven't actually played any of it yet. I got as far as seeing the level select screen and realizing how fast and loose they played with geography, and that was it.
Nice. Oh, that's right. You posted that picture for
Yes.
us. Yeah. Yeah, that was great.
Wow.
That was great. Well, I'm gonna give a solid. These games are worth playing. As hard as they are.
Oh, yeah.
I'm gonna give a high recommend for these games.
Yeah, huge.
Agreed. Absolutely agreed.
Yeah.
If not just to listen to the bangers that those games produced.
Oh,
I mean,
yeah. Oh yeah.
Capcom
Yeah,
has
all
a
the
real
tracks
hard
are
time
top
of
notch.
producing anything poor in the late 80s, early 90s. I can't suggest this game enough.
Yeah.
Right. Awesome. Well, we have a little housework before we finish, guys. So for those that are just joining the podcast for the first time or haven't listened to the last, I don't know, few months of episodes, we are working on compiling a Press B to Cancel Top 100 list where each episode, the people that are in the episode nominate a game for the list. Once we have enough nominees, we will vote amongst ourselves. Maybe we'll bring in the community. We'll see. But I think this is for us. This is a Press B, so it'll be a vote amongst ourselves, and we will come up with our top 100 list. So,
Yes.
that said, who wants to start with their nominee?
I'll go first.
I
Screw
guess
it. I'll go, yeah.
Jake probably wants to go first so nobody steals his.
It's true.
Yeah, fuck you all. Okay, so
You already know what mine is.
Street Fighter 2, my ass. Anyway, I'm playing anyway.
It was almost Mega Man X.
All right, so for mine, I don't want to make the list, NES heavy, but I have to add one of my favorite games in NES, and that is Monster Party. Monster Party is an amazing game on the NES. It is also difficult, but I think it's amazing just for the sheer number of bosses that are in that game. And when I say bosses, like from King Tut, who spits snakes at you, to freaking a dancing samurai, to just spider, just the variety. Like there's even a boss where it's a cat in a well who throws kittens at you. You can't make these bosses up. It's just wildly unique and deranged at the same time. And I just love everything about Monster Party. It's one of my favorite games. And there's like a good variety in the stages as well.
Excellent.
Good choice.
Well, Chard, you want to go next?
Yeah. I am we're leaving all the consoles behind for mine. And I am a big fan of this series. All of them, to be honest with you. But I'm gonna go ahead and lean into the series that I think captured more people's affections in this whole series. And we're going with King's Quest, but we're going with King's Quest 5, which I believe is called Absence Makes the Heart Grow Fonder or Yonder.
Isn't it?
Yonder,
I think it's Yonder.
that's right. Yeah. Where you play as King Graham, and you're out to find a wife, apparently. And it's the big turn. It was the big turn in the game series because the originals were always done with keyboard clicking, typing in what you're looking for. This was the big turn with the actual mouse was included into the game, so you can click on items and do quick swaps and look at things without having to type look at ground. That's not a command. Stare at ground. That's
Take
not a
rock.
command. Take rock. You find a rock. What do you do with it? Take rock.
Throw rock.
Throw rock. That's
Yeah.
not a command. It's all that, and you didn't have to change all the floppy disks. You could actually load this entire game on your PC and play it straight off the bat. So I'm going with King's Quest 5. I think it was one of my favorite point and click adventure games. All the King's Quests, honestly, were all of my favorite point and click adventure games. But 5, I think, has the most memorable stuff in it, and has brought more people to the franchise by itself than the rest of them.
And also fantastic soundtrack, especially if you have the MT32 Pi. I should probably spin this up on my Mister and get a sample so that you guys can hear the soundtrack on the MT32. Sierra was very well known for hiring composers, and they did their soundtracks with actual composers. So
There's a lot of King's Quest games where I actually was in awe about what I was watching and listening to. It was like a cinematic movie that you were playing at the time. I mean, again, it's low res and all that stuff, but at the time we were just like, holy shit, this is incredible. So I definitely got to go with King's Quest 5.
Excellent. All right, Werewolf, how about you?
Resident Evil.
Nice.
Number one.
Yes, number one.
Yeah.
The first Resident Evil.
Okay.
Number what?
Because it is responsible for it's pretty much single-handedly responsible for the I can't say resurgence and not the birth of, but the popularity of the survival horror franchise.
Mm-hmm.
I think it originated
before that they were I do believe D came before it and Clock Tower and stuff like that.
Okay.
Yeah.
Right.
But Resident Evil is what made it accessible and what caused it to really catch fire with everybody, right? And it's spawned a I was gonna say an 8-game franchise, but it's way more than that because there's the Umbrella Chronicles, there's Gun Survivor, there's tons of them. So it's way more than that. But
there's at least 12.
Yeah, it's a massive franchise. And then it's probably the reason Silent Hill got popular, Alone in the Dark got popular. Like all these games really stem from Resident Evil 1. And it was really something special at the time. I still quote it all the damn time. Every time I hear somebody say, "What is this?" I respond, "Hope this is not Chris's blood." I still if I see broken text somewhere that just looks kind of unreadable or garbled, my first thought is for Itchy Tasty, right? Like Resident Evil has become a part of my thought process, the original one. So
fantastic.
That's funny.
Chris was my old partner too.
I'm actually playing the remake, the remastered one tomorrow, as a matter of fact. So
yeah.
Nice. I still have to. I'm playing through 5 with a friend of mine right now. And then we're actually going to play through 6. Neither of us has played through it.
I'm right behind you. But I'm doing all the remakes.
Yeah. Excellent. Well, and then mine is we're going with a DOS heavy episode because we're doing more than one DOS game. My game is Heroes of Might and Magic, the turn-based strategy, not the RPG, the turn-based strategy that stemmed from the Might and Magic series. There was a game before it, Warlords and Warlords 2, that kind of started this trend where it was top world exploration and then turn-based combat. And then Heroes of Might and Magic basically took that. You have a hero that you work through the world. You go and collect troops. You then try to take castles from the the bad guys, and you build your troops. You start out with things like just regular warriors or wolves or something, and you eventually end up with dragons and angels, and you collect these along the way. I collected an angel along the way. And it stemmed an entire series. I am going with number one because it is what created that entire series. But if you want kind of the definitive experience, play Heroes of Might and Magic 3. That is kind of the definitive experience. But yeah, it's a fantastic turn-based combat top world exploration game.
Nice.
Neat.
Cool, neat, cool.
I never picked up any of the Heroes of Might and Magic games. I always wanted to try one of the standard Might and Magic games, but didn't get the chance.
Might and Magic is a fun, like those games as well are great. They're fantastic. Kind of that pseudo first person from back in the day where you had the little window and it would move, but it was like that pseudo 3D. It was still, a grid that you were walking on. You had your party. They were great. They were fantastic. Well worth playing. 3, 4, 5. I think 4 and 5 combined together to make the world of Zine, and that is a blast to play. So yeah, for sure.
Good call.
Yeah.
Well, heavy.
It was. Yeah, we had 2 MS-DOS games. Okay. So, any other thoughts, guys, on any of the things we've talked about?
Nope.
All right. Well, then once again, like, subscribe, tell your friends. Come join our Discord. You can find out how at pressbtocancel.com. Yeah, otherwise, it's been awesome. I appreciate all of you being here.
Yes, thank you.
Yeah.
Blathering Blatherskite.
Woo!